welcome to the Acoustic Shop channel. I am Jeremy, and we're going to go over 4 ways to change your guitar strings, starting with the easiest way. We're going to go through all the steps if this is your first time changing strings, or if you're an experienced guitar stringing expert and you want to learn some new techniques. We're going to cover 4 different ways to string your guitar. All right, if you're brand new to changing your strings on your guitar, the first question you're going to ask is, how do I know that I need a string change? One of the quick, easy ways, because early on you're not really familiar with the tonal difference, and your strings just go dead gradually, so you don't really notice it as much. When you put a new fresh set of strings on there, you're really going to notice the difference. But one quick way to look at it, normally if you're playing pretty regularly, maybe 2 to 3 months would be the max that you need to change your strings, because they just start to go dead, make it harder to stay in tune, and not as easy to play, and the tone really suffers. Something you can do is kind of just look at the strings, especially the bronze strings. They start to get tarnished, and you start to see a little bit of a darker, almost goldish color to it rather than that bright yellow. So you can still tell these strings are getting tarnished. Also with the unwound strings, they start to get a little bit rusty and dirty looking. That's one surefire way to know it's time to change your strings. Otherwise, just plan on doing it just about every 2 to 3 months. Now, when you're stringing the guitar, it's always good to have some of the right equipment. It's not completely necessary. You can do this in your lap, but in the shop we have the Music Nomad bench cover, so it's a real soft padding to keep from getting any scratches on your instrument. Also the neck rest, which helps keep the guitar up. If you've got a mandolin or a banjo, same thing. Just keeps it up so it's easy to work on. And then my favorite tool, we got one from Luthier, but also this Music Nomad one, a string winder / clipper / peg puller. That's all built into one. So we're going to show you why that might be a very handy tool to have. Regardless of what string you choose, there's lots of options out there. One of the most common is the light gauge strings and the phosphor bronze. There's also the medium gauge, and both of those will also come in what they call bright bronze or 80-20 bronze. Today we're going to be using one of my favorites, the EJ16 from Luthier. When you're brand new at changing strings, I recommend doing 1 string at a time. It doesn't hurt the guitar at all to take off all strings. If you're doing a mandolin or a banjo, definitely do not take all the strings off. But in the purposes of being a brand new to changing strings, do them 1 at a time. If you're wanting to clean underneath there, you can go clean as you go. If you really want to give your guitar a polish, you might take all the strings off, but that's a different video. If you don't want to have to restring or take all the strings off to clean your guitar, one of our favorite tools is the tool detailer from Music Nomad. So one thing you're going to want to do is make sure you trace the string. If you're brand new to this, make sure you got the right tuning peg. You're going to go on there, and I always recommend plucking the string so you can tell if you're going the right direction. If you hear the pitch go up, you're going the wrong direction. And it also sounds really like Looney Tunes. You're going to unwind that till you get it loose enough so it's completely slack like this, and then I just come up to the headstock and unwind it. So now you got a loose string. When you come over to this end, what you're going to want to do, if you don't have a peg puller, push the string down into the body of the guitar, and that loosens the tension on that, and normally the peg comes loose. If it doesn't, one of the real cool tools are going to be this little peg puller. This one's got it built into the side of that. You can slide that right onto there, pull up, and that'll pull your peg out for you. Then you're just going to remove that string. I always like to coil these up so they don't get lost or get stepped on. Coil that up a couple times and then wrap it around, and then it's tied itself in a little knot, and you can put that off to the side. Now we're going to open up the new strings. And Luthier brand likes to use different color-coded ball ends on the strings to tell you which string you're actually changing. So you open up that case there and follow the directions on the back. It normally comes in 3 different sets of 2, so they're wound together so you kind of know which one's the thicker of the 2. And then we're going to follow the directions here. It says that the low E string, which is the one we're working on right now, the 6th string, is going to be the brass-colored ball end. So I remember in science class, this is called potential energy. There's a lot built into the spring wrapped string right here, and it's going to turn into kinetic energy as soon as we release those. So what I always do is grab those 2 ball ends and then kind of unwind it behind myself, away from my eyes so I don't get poked in the eye, and then now you got the strings loose. We're going to set aside the red one and keep that bronze one. Now this next step is really important on a guitar. What we're doing here, the peg is really just meant to keep the string in place. The bridge plate of the guitar on the inside is what's actually holding that ball end. And I'll show you on a guitar here that we have cut open so you can see what I'm talking about. You're going to slide that in there, but don't go down too far. You're going to slide down in, put the peg in on top of it, and then pull up as you're pushing the peg down. And you'll kind of feel where the ball end slides and makes contact with that peg. So here we have a cutout guitar to give you an idea of what's happening inside the guitar. When you put that string in there, it's going to be pretty far down. So you can see when you put the string inside the guitar, it's going to be pretty far down past the bridge plate. You put that peg in on top of that. What you don't want to happen is wedge it in where this is up, kind of twist off to the side, because eventually that's going to just snap forward. You want to wiggle enough and pull up so that the bridge plate is actually holding the ball end. And then the peg's just kind of holding that off to the side. So the first technique I like is called the beginner technique, or that's what I've named it, because it is the one that I learned how to do it on. It's kind of the safest, easiest one to remember. And what you're going to do is just pull the string up. You're going to go over its slot in the nut, and then you're just going to, whichever peg you're changing to, just go around it 2 times. 1, 2, and then push that down, and you're going to push the string through the hole on top of all those windings you did. Basically what you did there is made sure you got enough string winding that it's not going to slip on you, but there's not a lot to remember. And then as you're tightening this up, the string is going to always be on the bottom of the wind, which gives it a good break angle over the nut. Something to always keep in mind on these bridge pins is a lot of times if you haven't seated that ball end very well, that bridge pin can want to pop out. So I always kind of put my finger over top of that and then pluck it. Again, hearing the pitch go up, and then try to match that E on the other side. This one's secure. Now something you can do very gently, pulling the string just maybe a 1/4 inch with your fingers. I'm just taking my thumb and fingers and pushing in different directions on both hands. That's just stretching out the string. You can hear how much the pitch dropped there. And that kind of pre-stretches the string so that you don't have as much tuning instability. After you've wound it and got it up to pitch, now you can clip that string in. You've probably seen people that just kind of wrap them around and look really ugly up there. I don't recommend that. It could put an eye out. It's dangerous and very unattractive. So no, I'd wind it around and then give it about a 1/4 or 1/8 inch of lead on the end of it, and then clip that, and it's out of your way. Now, this first technique being called, the beginner technique, it's a safe one to do, but as you can see, it leaves a lot of winds on the peg. Not the most attractive way to wind your strings, and once you get the hang of it, really not that necessary. So I'm going to show you technique number 2. This is the Luthier's technique. So this one's similar to the first one, but it looks a lot cleaner in the end. We're going to go around the peg 1 full wrap, and then it's almost like 1 1/2. I find that hole in there, and I put the string end over one of the wraps and under the one on the far side, so the top one. And that kind of locks that string in between those 2 wraps, still keeping the winding at the bottom. So as I tighten this up, the break angle is going down instead of up. But it gives a real attractive and safe way of locking that string in there. Sometimes you want to clip the string actually before it gets all the way around so that you got enough room to get the clippers on there. If I wait too long, then the string will be over top of the other ones, making it hard to clip. So I back it up a little bit, clip that string right up next to there, and then you can tune it up to pitch. One of the advantages of keeping and doing them 1 string at a time is I will take that 5th fret, which is the same as the next string, and pluck it with my pinky, and then pluck the next string to make sure they match. Again, we want to stretch that a little bit. Just pull on that string with your 2 fingers. So this is one of my favorite techniques. Some people aren't real big fans of it. I like it a bunch because it looks a lot cleaner, and it's the quickest way to change your strings. This one, I call it the locking technique. What we're going to do is, I always recommend taking your peg and turning so that the hole, and this is the easiest way to remember how to do this, turn so the hole is always pointing at the logo. So this will be on whatever instrument you have. It's pointing from the outside of the guitar to the logo. Then you're going to take the string, pull it tight over the nut slot, and you're going to come in from the logo side back down towards you. So you're going from the logo towards yourself. And the cool thing about this is you can pull it tight right now, wrap around the outside of the guitar, and then underneath that wrap that you just did. So once you've done that, you're just going to pull straight up. And this has very little winding needed. It's already locked that in there, and I'm almost up to pitch already. Now the string is locked right in place there. Very clean, hardly any wrap on the string at all, or on the peg at all, and probably the quickest way to change your strings. Now we've done the lowest 3 strings, the 4th, 5th, and 6th strings of the guitar. Now you're onto the other side. Sometimes it's easier to flip the guitar around so that it's on your side. I normally just reach across the guitar and carry on the same way. Make sure, again, you pluck it so you go in the right direction because the gear changes directions this side. So this next technique is, it's one that Taylor Guitars recommends, and Fender Guitars also. And basically you kind of add about the length of the distance between the pegs, 1 1/2. So you go up to, in this case it looks like about 2 1/2 inches. You go ahead and clip the string right away off the top. And then you start the same way, but this time you're only going to have a little bit of string hang out, and then you begin winding. You're going to start on top of that, the end that you've already clipped off, go over top of it first, and then go under it on the second pass around. The downside of this is you got to keep tension on the string as you're winding it, and it takes a lot more winding. Again, one of my favorite tips, if you change strings one at a time, using that 5th fret and plucking it with your finger while you're winding to make sure the next one gets up to that same pitch. That works all the way till you get to the B note. When you get to this G string, you gotta go back to the 4th fret, which will be your B note. And then you're back to the 5th fret again on the B string to get to your E. So the only time you gotta jump back 1 fret is when you get to that G string. So you can visually see the difference between these 4 different methods. The first one, easiest to remember, easiest to get started with, but not the most attractive. That one's not going to slip on you. You got a little bit more wrap, you're a little more safe. Number 2 is one of my favorite, very clean, pinches that string in between the 2 winds. That's the one that we use at the shop for every instrument that we send out. One that I've just done for years would be that locking method. I just love that one because if I'm on stage and I break a string, it's really quick to get that one up and running, a lot less winding. There's about 1 full revolution on that one. And then the Taylor one, I'm not a huge fan of because it leaves a lot of wrapping on there and a lot of winding, but maybe that's more in your wheelhouse. It's hard to get that last bit of that clipping where you want it. I would probably cut that one a little shorter. So what is your favorite technique? When you look at this, what do you use at home? And any questions you have, be sure to put those in the comments and we will answer those as quickly as we possibly can. I know it can be a little intimidating the first time you change your strings, but pretty soon you're going to be an old pro, and then you can apply for a job at the Acoustic Shop. If you guys enjoyed that and learned it, but you're curious on what strings you should put on your guitar, we did a blind string challenge. We had Trent play his guitar and put different strings on it right away without us seeing which strings he was using. We just listened to him and see if you agree with what we chose for our favorite strings.